Hi, this is Sara Levin, the Artful Inker. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I've got these two quick cards using the new Christmas Scottie stamp set. Let's get started. For this first card, I'm going to be using the Christmas Scottie bundle that's in the July to December Stampin' Up! Mini catalog. You can find those products using the link in the description below the video. There's an arrow that you can click to have the description expand. And that's this stamp set and then the Scottie Dog Punch. And of course, when you purchase them together, you do receive a 10% discount. Let me just set those aside. And we're going to start with a piece of Very Vanilla and one of the Scotties in the Christmas Scottie stamp set. And I'm using my embossing buddy. And that is part of the Embossing Basics pack in the catalog. It's been a little while since we've had the embossing buddy in the Stampin' Up! Catalog, so I'm excited to see it back. Okay. And stamping in Versamark. Let me set that aside and grab, I've got a piece of scrap paper. Now in that Embossing Basics kit, you do get a pan to collect your stamp and emboss powder or glitter or other loose kinds of things that you're using for your stamping, and that's certainly handy. And I also like that it comes with a little brush, because I often use a little brush to clean up my embossing powder. Now let's bring the heat tool in, and I'm going to heat that up first. And then we're going to set this from behind. You can see it change here, which for me is still an excitement after all these years. I love heat embossing. It's one of the things that got me hooked on stamping to begin with. Okay, and that's done. We'll let that cool just a moment as we open up the Scottie Dog Punch, and I'm just going to take my snips and cut this edge off that. And then let's cut a little piece right in here, because this side will be a little long as well. And then we'll slide this in to my punch and give it a little hold here, making sure that I've framed him before giving it a full punch. Okay, and so there's my Scottie. We'll set him aside, and I've punched my bow already. So let's grab my bow stamp, and before inking, I want to make sure that I'm stamping on the correct side. And I'm using Petal Pink ink, and just want to rub all over on the back of that stamp. Now I'm not mashing down in, I'm just giving it a light rub so that it will make contact. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Now, of course, you could have stamped first. I'm going to turn that over and do that again. I'm not loving it. And let's just do that on a scrap piece over here, and then I don't have to worry about whether it's going to match up. There we go. Close up my Petal Pink and grab my Scottie Dog Punch again, and then I can just slide this right down in here, and I'm going to make sure that I'm giving this a nice enough border here. And I'm going to let that dry a moment, and then I'll come back to it. In the meantime, let's go ahead and finish our stamping. And I've got Pool Party ink, and I'm going to ink my sentiment in the Pool Party ink. I'm sure you've guessed at this point that I'm using non-traditional colors for my Christmas card. Okay, let's close up that Pool Party and grab my snips here. And I'm just going to cut this loose. And then I'm going to cut around my sentiment. Of course, if you prefer, you could pick a punch to do this with or a die. And I'm just giving this very straight lines for my shape around here. Okay, oops. So there's my Merry Christmas. Now, let's bring this back in, and we're going to zoom in just a minute because it's a small piece. And I've got my Petal Pink Stampin' Blends, and let me use the bullet end here, and we're just going to give this a little definition like around the knot here, and oops, give that a little turn. I'm trying to make sure I'm staying in the camera and not getting my head in. So I want to give a little extra color here. So we've got some shading inside the bow, give it a little 3D-ish look, and then come back out here and again, just a little bit round shape around that knot to give it a little more definition. So I'm going to set that aside to dry, and let me bring my punch in here and my Pool Party, and I'm going to zoom out here. And I don't think I mentioned this is my decorative circle punch. It's new in the Stampin' Up catalog, annual catalog. Okay, so let's close that up and put it out of the way, and we are pretty ready to assemble. So I've got a piece of very vanilla cardstock and this strip of Texture Chic designer paper. It is one of my absolute favorites in the designer paper. Of course, I love the blingy gold foil on it, and I'm always a fan of something that's a little more abstract in design. So we're going to add that accent strip. Let me grab my scissors and trim. I'd rather cut that accent strip a little long than have it too short. Bring my card base in here, and it's soft succulent. And let's adhere this to the inside. It's always nice to have a little design on the inside of your cards, and a strip of designer paper is an easy way to do that. And then let's close this up, and I'm going to add dimensionals to the back of this piece of Texture Chic designer paper. So for this card, I've combined products that are in the mini catalog with products that are in the annual catalog. I know we don't always think to do that we can do that. That's the lovely thing about Stampin' Up! coordination is lots and lots of things go together. Okay, so this makes a beautiful layer on the front of this card. And then I've got another strip of that Texture Chic in a different pattern. Oops. And I'm just going to cut that in half and then flag the ends here. Okay. And do this one as well. Okay, let's put those bits out of the way. I need dimensionals on the back of this decorative circle punch. Okay, and I'm going to lay that in place but not stick it down. And then take my two flags here. You can see that one of them has a little more foiling than the other, so I'm going to make it the top flag and then pull them apart a little bit at the end, but overlap them back here. Stick them together, add a little more multi-purpose glue here, and then grab my mini dimensionals and add one under each of the ends here. So this piece without dimensional will sit nicely underneath here. And then I get the height of the dimensional out on the end. And I haven't had to double up on any of the dimensional when I do that. Okay, so let's pop that in place. And then I've got my lovely little Scottie here who needs dimensionals on him. And let's see if a mini will fit up here on his tail. Want to keep him as standing up as possible. Okay. And then we'll put our bow on. Just going to stick one mini here and turn our bow sideways here like our little Scottie is a present. And then let's add some mini dimensionals on this sentiment. Need to see where I'm going to need to double up on this. And out here as well. And let's see if I've properly supported that. We can use a single up in this corner. Sometimes you need to fit your pieces multiple times to make sure that you've got them sized and supported the way they need to be. So let's move that over and we'll let his ear kind of cover part of the eye. And then that's our Christmas Scottie Christmas card. And that's one down and a few to go for my Christmas cards for this year. Let me set it aside and I'll be back with another card. For the second card, we're going to use that Christmas Scottie stamp set again. And I'm going to start with my seated Scottie in my Stamparatus. And let's see if I can add another little magnet here so that if I need to ink again, my paper is going to stay flat. And I'm inking in Memento. It's a lot of solid surface, which is why I'm taking my time with the inking. And that's also why I'm choosing to use the Stamparatus. So I'm giving that a rub all over. And a second to transfer, and then I'll lift slowly so that I don't suction that up. And I need to add a little more ink. I'm just going to do that all over. And you can see where I've got a little texture here, and I'm going to hope to fill that in. Okay, so I'm going to press specifically in those texture areas, but give it a rub all over. And now I'm really nice and black here. Okay, so let's take this out and set my Stamparatus aside. And before I go any further, actually I'm going to let that dry just a moment so I don't drag my thumb and create thumbprints on that. And we're going to ink up the sentiment. And again, I'm going over this a couple of times. You could do the same thing and use your Stamparatus. I'm going to be hopeful that I don't need that. Okay, and that looks great. And I'm going to use the double oval punch this time to cut it out. And the scalloped size of that. Okay, let's set that aside. And let's go back to our Scottie here now. And I want to cut around him. And I am going to leave a little bit of white border. So you can leave more, less, none, whatever makes you happy as you do this. And I am going to leave his collar white. You could choose to make his color a color using a stamp or from the stamp set, or using a Stampin' Right marker for a quick color in. And I'm just trimming off the extra bits here that make getting into some of these spaces a little harder if you're allowing a larger bit to just kind of hang on there. And you're turning your paper, not the scissors. And again, as always, you notice that the scissors are not closing completely. And do that, and then I'm going to come in and kind of give a little detail cut to the end of the tail here. And these are just little easy kind of V cuts to take that out. And I'm just a little chunky with my border there. Okay, so there is my Scottie ready to go. And then I've got some real red here and my bow punch. This is in the annual catalog. And I'm going to take a couple punches with this. Okay, let's set that aside. And we're at the ready to put this together stage. So I'll push my pieces over, and I've got a piece of basic white and some of the perfectly penciled designer paper and my multi-purpose glue. And we're just going to straighten this on my grid paper. I love my grid paper, and you can have some too. You can find that in my Stampin' Up store. And you can get there by using the link in the description below the video. Okay, our base is basic black. And we're just going going to glue this on the inside. And for spacing, I'm checking the two sides in the bottom to see that they're fairly even. And then let's close that up. And I've got another piece of the perfectly penciled designer paper, and I'm going to add my dimensionals on this. Do be generous with your dimensionals. You don't want the middle of your layer to be saggy. So I tend to put 6 to 8 on each of my cards for this first layer. Celebration right now, so it's a great time to stock up on your paper crafting basics like adhesives and get a little extra something. So then I've got this strip of the perfectly penciled. It's the reverse of this small floral, and I'm going to use this instead of a ribbon piece across the center-ish of my card. Okay. And then I've got my piece of basic white cut with a scalloped contours die. Those are a great set of basics when you're thinking about what kind of die cutting things you need. It's always nice to have a variety of things to cut layers. And I like the nice little scallop on the edge of this. Okay, so I'm just going to set this in place here. And then I need dimensionals for my Scottie. Oops. And just another one. And I'm going to set my Scottie down and decide how I'm going to use some of these little pieces. I want them sticking out, but not too far. So I'm going to trim the ends off of these so that my pieces aren't too long. I'm afraid that if I don't trim them, that I'll end up sticking them out too far. Okay. Let's bring this little piece over a little bit so that we get the texture from that. And then I want this other little flower, but I'm going to bend it up just a little bit and then leave the longer stem on this one. But let's bring that up just a little bit. Okay. And almost done. So we've got that little pop of color with our pieces cut with the bow punch. Would help if I straighten up my card. I don't want that coming out of his mouth, looking like it's coming out of his mouth. And let's see if we want this last. I do. I want this last bit under the edge down here. So this card is going to be a sympathy card for a friend who's just lost their fur baby. But you could easily change up the sentiment and use the same layout and have it be a Christmas card if you like. So a versatile stamp set with the variety of sentiments available. Let's pop this down. Oops. And just come right in here. And there's my second card using Christmas Scottie. One Christmas card and one sympathy card. Thanks for stopping in today. If you're in the United States, please do some of your Stampin' Up! Shopping in my store. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with your card-making friends. And when you subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell, you'll be notified the next time I upload a video. Have a great day. Bye.